The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
Hello everyone, I'm back again with more math, because you can't stop me. So anyway, I just want to talk about something that I recently did some research into to try to figure out, which is chance versus number of like attempts, right? So a lot of times in life what I've come across is people who think, oh, so I've got a 10% chance of doing something, say. If I do that thing 10 times, then I have a 100% chance of success. Well, no. You actually have a 65% chance of rounds. What does this number mean? Like, what am I talking about? So basically, the main thing that these people aren't realizing that true random does not consider previous results, meaning just because you fail one time, that doesn't mean the next time you have an increased chance, or that the game won't remember that you failed your roll and that you'll have a greater chance of succeeding next time, right? This formula that I looked up has to deal with, which is that there is still statistical probability involved in multiple, rolls. It's not like perfect, but it gives you this formula will give you a better idea of how to estimate what that chance is. And so what is this, relevant for? Well, in my game, I have abilities that hit multiple times, and they have a percent chance of adding a state. So, in order to predict what the final chance is, because by default RPG Maker will roll that chance with each hit, I needed the formula to kind of help predict. I mean, obviously you can play test a bunch, but that's time consuming. I'd rather have a guess and then play test based off that guess. So there's a number of other things this could be useful, like say you have loot in your game that's random, or maybe you have a slot machine or something. Anytime you have a random chance in your game, and you want to figure out, like, what are the odds of success or failure when the player is, trying it multiple times. So I found this formula online, which is basically you take your percent chance that you have for success on one roll, and then I hid this over here. You take it out of 100%, because you apparently need to find the chance of failure, and then you take that number that you've received, which is down here. See how it's 90%? That's 100% minus 10%, and you do an exponent of the number of attempts here, and then you 1 minus again from that to flip it again. And so that gives you this result that should give you an estimation of what their chances to succeed with multiple rolls. So this was very important for me because I have items that have a chance to stun. So obviously if I put too high of a number here, like say 20%, then this gets pretty high. And I have a lot of this in my game. I'll have like 35 on a different one that hits twice. And I'm like, what are the odds on that? Like, oh, 57%. And this is definitely pretty helpful if you've ever actually played a game that used this, and you were like, oh man, 50% chance to roll twice, that's 100%. No. It's like, why am I failing so often? Or it feels like I'm failing way more often than 100%, which would suggest. So that's what happens. Another thing to remember here is that the final chance is still random, and you need a large sample size to test. So, when you're trying to test these numbers out, you still need to play test your game. You still, probably when you're first starting out, you might want to double check RPG Maker's math or your math, and create a dummy, and then hit the dummy with a skill a bunch of times to see how often it succeeds, or create a situation where you can keep repeating that thing that you're trying to test over and over again. And, in this scenario, I haven't had a skill that hits twice or however many times, but, you need to invent your fantasy scenario. Like, say you're looting 4 boxes, right? Then you need to have 4 boxes and roll them 4 times each, and then that'll be like a set. So, like, ideally, to playtest that number, you would have to, if the number is, 2 or 4, whatever it is, you do that like 10 times. And then the number of successes you have of that set kind of determines it. So in my case, I have, I think it's like 8%, 9. This is probably too high. So let's say 7%. So I have this almost 48% chance of successful stun on this attack. I would perform this attack 10 times. This is a small sampling size, right? And if I got 4 successes or 5 successes, you can kind of see that that's probably on the mark. You might do more sets of 10 to see if like how consistent it is. Because again, it's still random, so you're gonna sometimes you'll get more, sometimes you get less, but it should float around this number. And ideally, if you did this like this number of rolls I have here, if you just kept trying it, like if I tested it 1,000 times, I'd probably get you the closest to like the actual 47% chance, right? Or if I did it 100 times, I might get it 47 or 48 times. But yeah, that's the thing about random chance. You just have to test it a lot. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was just this little special thing that I discovered, because I was going to do an example of, hey, even if you have a 99% chance and you roll 100 times, it's not going to be 100%, but it started doing this, and I was like, what the hell? And I guess I just realized that, because I had to get a different calculator to figure this out, this number I'm rolling is so insanely small that I guess Excel just gives up and thinks that this number is equal to 0 when it clearly isn't. Like, that makes no sense. Why would this be equal to 0? So Excel has a limit to how many like decimal points there can be, I guess. So it thinks this is 0, which is why 1 minus 0 equals 100%. Like, duh. So just keep that in mind. And it's actually, you can hit this limit pretty easily, actually. See, it's 100% as well. This should not be 100%. It's like 99.99999, percent chance of success, but it shouldn't be 100%. So just a little thing I noticed there in testing this out. But all right, that should be it for me. Just little dilly about math and trying to figure out odds and stuff.